Thanks for watching Philadelphia 76ers Now by Chat Sports. I'm Chase Senior. Hope all of you are gearing up to have a fantastic weekend. We have a loaded show coming your way. We're talking Sixers free agency, Sixers undrafted free agents, and a whole lot more. You do not want to miss anything that we have coming your way. Talking about Kyrie Irving, Matisse Thybulle, the DeAnthony Melton trade, which I happen to really like. Eric Gordon, also PJ Tucker. It looks as though, according to reports, the Sixers not clearing money off the cap, which would then mean that they don't have money to sign P.J. Tucker. We will see what happens with less than a week to go toward NBA free agency. We've talked about P.J. Tucker plenty on this week's show. So we first start off with the 76ers UDFA tracker. They don't make a pick last night. Instead, they make that deal for DeAnthony Melton, and they are bringing in 3 UDFAs to compete in NBA Summer League to try to have a crack at this roster, which is obviously unrealistic because the Sixers right now are in a pretty good position where they do have depth at some positions, and they don't have open roster spots. The ones that they do, they'll probably fulfill them in NBA free agency. So the most notable of the 3 UDFAs is Julian Champagnie out of St. John's. This past year, 19 points per game. He's a really good rebounder for his size, but as you can see, he's a little bit thin. Does have some nice length, though. 2 steals per game, able to knock down sub 34% from his three-point attempts. John Hollinger pretty high on the prospect. We'll get to his scouting analysis on Champagnie coming up here right around the corner. Second UDFA is Michael Foster of the G League Ignite. If I'm a college player or I'm a young player coming out of high school thinking about going to college, and I see what happened to some of these G League players as you take a look at the numbers for Michael Foster, I think because of the marketability, you playing on a bigger platform, opportunity to play in the NCAA tournament in front of better environments, I'm capitalizing on NIL. I'm going the college ranks. I'm not playing at the G League level because guys like Michael Foster, guys like Jaden Hardy, either didn't get drafted or slid so late in the draft because there's a lack of exposure. Aminu Mohammed, guard out of Georgetown. Since Patrick Ewing took over for the Hoyas, they've been an average team. They won the Big East a couple of years ago. Other than that, they've been at or below 500. Aminu Mohammed, pretty solid player with a little bit of potential. I think he's going to have to develop in the G League or maybe go overseas. Less than 14 points per game this past season for G-Town. 8 rebounds, so a pretty good rebounder for his size. A steal and a half per game. He's 6'5", and knocked down 38% of his field goal attempts, not three-point attempts, so obviously that a little bit concerning. We'll get to all of the latest free agency and trade rumors, but first, who is your favorite UDFA that the Sixers did sign? Is it Champagnie, JC, Michael Foster, MF, Aminu Mohammed, AM? Let me know in the comment section right now. As for Hollinger's analysis on Champagnie, he actually had him as a top 25 prospect. And I think that John does a really good job of scouting players, especially on an analytical level. Here's what he had to say about him. He isn't getting much first-round buzz, but I think he's a name teams need to consider outside of the lottery, so he's really high on him. Champagnie has a bit of a thin frame and could become a little too enamored of jab step jump shots, something he converts at a respectable rate, about 35% from 3 for his career. But maybe that shouldn't be the focal point of his game. He played a bit as a volume scorer for a weak St. John's team, but that won't be his role as a pro. He profiles as a 3-and-D guy who can provide some juice as a secondary rim protector and disruptor. On the ball, he likes to get into dribblers, even smaller ones, so he does have that tenacity defensively. 3+ steals per 100 possessions. I think he'll be able to stay with NBA wings, did say John Hollinger. So we're going to have an opportunity to see him play and compete for the Sixers in the NBA Summer League, and we're actually going to cover the NBA Summer League right here on the channel and on our main Chat Sports YouTube channel. So I do want to ask you, I sit down, I watch these games. I have ever since the games were back in the day in an empty gym in Orlando. Are you excited for the NBA Summer League? E for excited, DC for don't care. Coming up here right around the corner on Philadelphia 76ers Now, we're only getting started. We're talking Kyrie Irving, DeAnthony Melton, Matisse Thybulle, as well as Eric Gordon. Is Daryl Morey still trying to trade for him after not being able to land him during NBA draft night? And speaking of that, we went live on our main Chat Sports YouTube channel. Nearly 800,000 people joined us all throughout the night. We're running it back less than a week from now, and we have you covered all throughout NBA free agency now, coming off of the draft. So make sure you subscribe. YouTube.com/ChatSportsTV. As for the latest on Kyrie Irving, we did a video yesterday on him. We don't have to spend a ton of time on him, but Adrian Wojnarowski did say this, and we talked about this report, but he also said something that brings this into a clearer point of view. So he tweeted that Kyrie has his list, his personal list of teams that he'd like to get traded to potentially if he doesn't go back to Brooklyn. Lakers, Clippers, Knicks, Heat, Mavs, and 76ers. But then he followed up on it with a little bit more stability to the report. With Kyrie, I don't think you say that won't happen, that'll never happen, but I do think that list in terms of Dallas, Philadelphia, and the Clippers, I don't think that there's mutual interest there. And we knew kind of from the get-go this wasn't all that realistic, because what would you have to do to bring in Kyrie, who his lack of availability is certainly concerning. I like the player alongside Joel Embiid, but it's a little bit flaky, not available enough. What do you have to do to bring him in? Probably trade away James Harden. Brooklyn is not getting back James Harden because he was just disgruntled in Brooklyn. You'd have to find a 3-team deal, and all of these players are very, very expensive. But I do want to gauge where you're at. What would your interest be in Kyrie Irving? Let me know once more. Fielding all of your responses down below, give me a number and scale it from 1 to 100. Now, I already told you about our main Chat Sports YouTube channel, and under our Chat Sports umbrella, we continue to grow all of our channels, like this one, my baby, Philadelphia 76ers. Now, whatever moves that the Sixers make this entire offseason, you know who's got you covered? Your boy right here, this channel right here, youtube.com/76erstv, or just hit that red subscribe button down below. So we continue to get to some of these rumors and all of these news items for Philadelphia. It was a jam-packed draft night across the league and for the Philadelphia 76ers because they made a pretty sizable trade. It's pretty important for this team moving forward. Going into the offseason, and as part of my offseason plan, I had a couple of keys for Philadelphia. You had to get a little bit tougher, you had to improve the depth, and bring in some more scorers who could put the ball on the deck and are not afraid to take shots late in the game. And that's what D'Anthony Melton brings to the table. I like the trade for him. You give up number 23 and $10 million from Danny Green's expiring contract, which expires after next year, for a little bit of juice off the bench and a guy who can start occasionally for you. And the growth, since being a second-round pick back a couple years ago, out of USC has been somewhat impressive, and things are trending in the right direction for D'Anthony Melton. And when John Morant was out, and he missed a lot of games last year for Memphis, Tyus Jones and D'Anthony Melton were critical components to that Grizzlies offense. 20 minutes per game 2 years ago, 9 points per game, about 44% shooter, 41% from long range on about 3.5 attempts per night. This past year, he got a little bit more minutes. The production scoring-wise in that department went up just a tad. Field goal percentage went down, but that's okay because he still shot around 37.5 from three-point range. And when you play with a guy like Joel Embiid and James Harden, Embiid occupies double teams on the low block, which opens itself up for you having open looks around the perimeter. And obviously, James Harden is a very good passer. If you hold on to him, then Tyrese Maxey can drive and kick, take it to the rim. If you have Tobias Harris, the fit here for D'Anthony Melton, both with the players that I talked about, but also giving him the keys to that second unit scoring-wise, is that punch that the Sixers needed, and this guy is a dog. He's got pit bull inside his veins. So grade the trade for D'Anthony Melton. I asked you this last night. I'm asking you once more. A, B, C, D, or F, you let me know. As for Daryl Morey hitting up the Houston Rockets, for Eric Gordon, according to Keith Pompey, Philadelphia Inquirer, Sixers still trying to acquire Gordon despite being unsuccessful on draft night. And the player, it kind of makes sense with the fit with James Harden and Joel Embiid, and you just needing better three-point shooters who are a little bit more reliable than a guy like Matisse Thybulle. Injury concerns, age concerns, they're certainly there for Eric Gordon, but he's coming off a year in which, if you have him in the role that he had last year, where he's not being asked to play a ton every given night, and he can stay refreshed during the season, if you get 13.5 points per game, sub 48% from the field and 41% from three, that's pretty good production. The only thing is Eric Gordon is really expensive, so this would require you moving off a player like Thybulle or trying to clear some salary for a guy like Eric Gordon, maybe even a guy like P.J. Tucker, who, according to reports out there, Philadelphia right now, Daryl Morey not trying to clear money for him. A couple days ago, we were talking about the Sixers being favorites for P.J. Tucker. Now, more reports that they're in a different direction with P.J. Tucker. We'll see what happens with him as well as Eric Gordon. We'll get to Matisse Thybulle to round out today's show. But first, do you want Eric Gordon in Philadelphia? Do you want him as that two guard, either as a starter or coming in off the bench? If so, like the video. If not, I want you to comment why. Okay, let's get to Matisse Thybulle here. Just some updates on him from Keith Pompey. Sixers are trying to acquire Eric Gordon. That's from Keith Pompey. And using Matisse Thybulle as an asset, even attempting to get a third team to participate, according to multiple league sources. As for teams who could be interested in Thybulle, the Portland Trailblazers. And you think about what they're doing. They're in on OG Anunoby. They already traded for Jeremy Grant. Could they be in on more length with Matisse Thybulle? When you have Damian Lillard starring the ship, you don't have a lot of defense with him. So you try to build defense around him because he's somewhat of a defensive liability. Matisse Thybulle, as we know, 2 times in 3 years, all-NBA defender. This is also interesting coming from Rockets Insider, and it could involve Thybulle, it could involve Eric Gordon. He said this: if you followed me for a long time, you know I don't tweet sources much, but that Eric Gordon news is legit. The Rockets and the Sixers have been trying to create a 3-team deal to make it all possible. Whatever happens, you know we have you covered right here on the channel, because every move that the Sixers make, we got to chop it up and we got to talk about it. Lastly, before I hop on out of here, should the Sixers deal Matisse Thybulle? Do you think he should get traded? We're talking about a former first-round pick who is an elite defender in this league, guarding the most difficult position to guard at that wing spot. He just is a liability shooting from the outside. If he can get better there, my goodness, we're talking about a guy who's still young, elite athlete, crazy length, plays the passing lanes, blocks shots, can defend all around the three-point arc. He can be special. It's the shot that's a little bit of a concern. Thanks for watching today's show. We'll see you next time here on Philadelphia 76ers Now.